The title of this webinar is Achieving Skills Excellence, Using Competition Activity in the Curriculum, Raising the Standard of Study Programmes for Students with Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. Hello from the Shropshire-Wales border on this turning out to be quite a glorious day. I hope your surroundings are being kind to you and you're comfortable. Welcome to the third of 5 NatSpec Practice Focus webinars, developed by NatSpec and ASA to support the delivery of high-quality study programmes as part of a SEND workforce development programme. This webinar is about using competition activity in the curriculum to raise standards and achieve skills excellence. It aims to give you practical advice, guidance and tips to do just that. We hope that by the end of it, you will have the knowledge and confidence to stretch and challenge your learners through engaging them in competition activity. We also hope that you will see competition activity as an opportunity to develop relationships and maybe partnerships with your local employers. My name is Louise Keevil. I have 14 years experience working with young people with disabilities and a strong belief that we should all have the opportunity to work towards achieving our aspirations. I initiated and now lead on the Inclusive Skills competitions for NatSpec. I am the Inclusive Skills Manager at NatSpec and I chair the National Inclusive Skills Focus Group, working with a network of practitioners across the country. I have seen the way that skills competitions inspire and motivate students and teaching and learning staff, and they don't involve a heap of extra work. They're different, not more. This webinar is a recording and will include ideas and questions that were posted at the live event. An important factor for us to start with, only 5.8% of adults with a learning disability are in paid work. I think this stark data helps us keep us focused, and I do believe that those of us that work with people with learning disabilities are in a position to help narrow the gap. After all, we see the talent in the young adults we work with daily, and we know that employers are missing out on this. This webinar is divided into 4 sections. We will be looking at why you should use competition activity in the curriculum. We will consider how to use competition activity. I've got some resources I'd like to share with you, and we'll finish with a summary. We'll have a few minutes at the end to respond to the questions that were put forward at the live event. In total, we'll be less than 45 minutes. So here is an early recap. This presentation will give you advice, guidance and tips on using competition activity in the curriculum to achieve skills excellence within a further education setting. There is growing evidence that connects the use of skills competitions to improved outcomes for teaching and learning. A strategic review of skills competitions undertaken in 2015 identified the need to embed and mainstream good practice used in competitions across a wider audience. Whilst the research to date focuses on level 2 and above, we have found that the findings are as relevant in our sector. The aims of this webinar are: we would like to build confidence to use competition activity in the curriculum to stretch and challenge. This one is key. We have found there is a caution around using competition with our learner group, yet our experience shows us that our learners respond to the concept in the same way as any other young adult. It can be emotional. We see elation and disappointment, and a range of responses in between, all of which are useful life experiences, particularly in a supportive environment. We want to support you to use skills competitions as a basis for schemes of learning, assessment and marking. We will be considering approaches to getting employers on board. We will provide links to resources which will enable your students to take part in skills competitions in your setting and more widely. So before we start, let's consider, what is a skills competition? Whilst the pictures on this page give you a good idea of what we're talking about, the statement at the bottom is key. We're talking about any task where a measured objective or subjective judgment can be made. Given that jobs mostly involve working in teams, being able to complete part of something is useful to employers, and competitions give us the opportunity to show employers what job carving can look like. When I say job carving, I mean the tasks within a business that a person can do. For example, somebody might be great at waiting on tables in a cafe. However, they may find using the till too challenging. In this situation, the employer may arrange their staffing so that someone else is always available to operate the till. They will want to carve and reorganise without affecting business efficiency. You can probably think of many more examples where this can be effective. So let's move on. Why use competition activity? The biggest impact for me is because they add excitement. They offer great scope for creative teaching and learning. We've seen some really competitive teaching and learning staff. There's often a sense of competition. Let's think how we can really push the boat out and shine brightly. This thinking outside the box and pushing boundaries transfers to the learners, and there's a real sense of excitement and camaraderie. They are a great method of assessment. Skills competitions are an assessment that tests knowledge, skills, behaviours and competence to carry out an occupational role. A feasibility study carried out by World Skills UK in 2017 into the use of standards and competitions methodology in apprenticeship endpoint assessment found that skills competitions present opportunities to think differently about assessment instruments and experiment with different ways of measuring competence. This is relevant for the journey towards qualifications as well as RAPA. We know that Ofsted inspectors look for evidence that all learners achieve and make progress relevant to their starting points and learning goals. Competitions provide a rigorous way to demonstrate this. A 2016 Ofsted inspection report for Dorring College praised the wide range of competitions and skills events which enable students to develop further their confidence and skills for work, perform under pressure and gain relevant work-related experience. They offer stretch and challenge. Competitions definitely provide a higher level of challenge, supporting the move from competence to excellence at that level. You can see here that Sue from the Education and Training Foundation thinks that skills competitions are really important for all learners to stretch and challenge them, to perform under pressure and reach their higher standards in their chosen occupational area. Also, they provide you with an opportunity to benchmark learners and activity against best in group. They showcase skills. Time and time again, we hear positive surprise about the talent of competitors, mostly from employers who have engaged as judges. Competitions show employers how the students can perform under pressure and to industry standard criteria. As well as being impressed by the level of skill, those who are involved in competitions or see them in action for the first time are often deeply impressed by the dedication and enthusiasm of both the competitors and their mentors. Because learners develop wider employability skills. Watching a learner on the journey from regular college activities through discrete competition activity in the familiar college group setting and maybe on to local collaborative activity with other groups is always a visual experience. You can see the wider personal and employability skills developing in front of your eyes. This could result in progression to cross-college activity and maybe engagement in regional competitions. The opportunity for personal growth is amazing. This picture is Nathan from the Royal National College for the Blind. It was taken 10 minutes before he took part in the Assistant Fitness Instructor competition. He is talking to VIPs. His tutor was amazed and so proud of him, not just for being a great assistant fitness instructor, but more for the growth in his confidence. Let's have a look now at how to use competition activity. Now that we have considered why you should engage learners in competition activity, you probably already have some thoughts and ideas about the how. Please take a note of my email at the end and take a few moments to share your thoughts with me. So the starting point is to plan the end result, the outcome. What is it you're going to be asking the learners to do? Or rather, what is it the industry or employers need the learners to be able to do? Whatever the required outcome is, it becomes a task. The task needs to be written as the competition brief. It is very important to remember this could be the full activity or job or part of it. It might be to lay the table to a particular standard, or it might be to clean the cutlery that will be laid on the table. We are talking about any task where a measured objective or subjective judgment can be made. In the future, we expect more employers to see the potential business benefits of job carving, and being involved in task-based competition activity could go some way to help spread understanding. My final thought, before we move on to look at the task in more detail, is to briefly mention the potential role of an employer in setting the standard. Skills competitions that are designed with industry experts have much credibility, as they clearly have a direct line of sight to employment. We'll talk more later about engaging employers. So here is a sample competition brief, or the task. You can see it's setting a table. I'll give you a minute to have a look at it, and then we will move on to consider the marking and assessment. This particular activity is considered to stretch and challenge learners studying at entry level 1, ideally for people on hospitality pathway, albeit that is not a requirement as these particular skills are useful independent skills. I'll give you a moment now to have a closer look. Here is the assessment information that would be available to the learners. You can see it describes the requirements. We will come to the full mark scheme in a few minutes. Again, take a few moments to take a closer look. Now that you are clear about the assessment task or competition brief, you can make a start in your scheme of learning. Are there assessment or competition steps on the way? You might want to build a full activity up with small competition steps. The table setting is a good example, as each small task could be assessed in stages over a period of time. Do you need to include activity that will prepare your learners for competition? I recommend that you build in some time to work with learners to support them to think about and develop wider skills. For example, what does competition feel like? What is it like working to time? Is it okay being observed when you're working? What will you do when things don't go to plan? There are other questions you may want to ask. Timeframes. What are the realistic timeframes? This will depend on things that are unique to your setting, such as group size, timetabling, differentiation. Your scheme of learning could be over a term or half term, or maybe you will have a full week with the group. How will you differentiate? Feedback tells us that a scheme of learning which is heading towards a competition is a great tool for differentiation, as all learners can do some of the tasks and some learners can complete the full task. Again, the steps required to set a table are a good example of this. Competitions also provide the opportunity for supporting each other, both practical support and moral support. This is another reflection of the workplace. Here is a marking scheme. I'll give you a moment to have a look at the sample marking scheme. It relates to the table setting brief we looked at. You can see that it is simply assessment criteria converted into a marking scheme. It is not creating extra work. It is approaching assessment differently. So, it is competition day. Who will judge? This is a great opportunity to invite the employer, who may have helped write the industry criteria for the brief. If this is not an option or not appropriate, the important factors are to ensure there is no opportunity for bias, so I'm afraid no aunties or uncles. And the person should have experience of the skill, particularly if the criteria is subjective. We have found that engaging senior leadership staff as judges has worked well. Not only does it show the competitors the importance of their work, but it also gives you the opportunity to get buy-in from your senior team. That is, of course, if it's not already there. Thinking about how they will judge. They should simply use the marking criteria to judge the skill. You and the competitors' support staff will take care of any additional support needs or issues that arise. So what is the trick for getting employers on board? I guess the first question is who. The starting point is to consider your existing contacts, whoever they are. It might be a friend. Mixing work and pleasure seems to have been okay. It could be an existing work experience provider. Or maybe this is an opportunity to make new contacts, possibly through the local Chamber of Commerce or the local enterprise partnership. The who really depends on your circumstances, your networks and your supporters. Networking is the best way to go about this. This can be professional or personal. You are best placed to know how to get the desired outcome. It is people talking to people that make this happen. Partnerships have worked best when collaboration has been from the start. The richest outcomes have been when industry experts have been involved in setting the standards, which become the competition brief. They have then met with the competitors as part of the scheme of learning. This could be about the competition preparation we talked about. And then they judged on the day. However, it is never too late. An invitation to observe on competition day is likely to be of benefit to future work. I think it would be really helpful if we could share our thoughts and experiences about engaging employers. It's very likely we could learn from and inspire each other. It doesn't have to be specific to competitions, and in fact is unlikely to be. Experiences are usually transferable and often inspire further thoughts. As this webinar is a recording, please take note of my email at the end and take a few minutes to share your thoughts. In the meantime, I have an idea that I would love us to explore. So how about you asking an employer to set an industry challenge for your learners, a task that is essential to their business? It's likely there will need to be some conversation around the suitability of the task, unless they already know you and your learners particularly well. The employer would then challenge you and your learners to showcase the task at its best. You could do this as a competition and ask them to judge. They will be hooked. This could almost be a campaign. Oh, I'm thinking really big now. Do you have any thoughts on this you could share? Again, please get in touch. We had some suggestions at the live event, and I'll share these at the end with the questions. So moving on, a few moments to think about recognition. You can see from these comments that we don't all need a medal. We need the recognition and feeling of pride in doing our best. Learners need to know and understand they can progress, maybe to the next challenge or level, or add extra elements to a task. Yes, it can be emotional. We know we can expect elation and disappointment and a range of responses in between. Remember, these are useful life experiences in a safe and supportive environment. Now we're going to take a look at the resources available to support you. Skills competitions are well established in mainstream further education, and a few years ago NatSpec, Derwent College and what was then North Warwickshire and Hinckley College recognised there was no opportunity for people with learning difficulties and disabilities to take part and enjoy. Working together, a series of competitions were established, the Inclusive Skills competitions. The competitions build links between the colleges, training providers and local and national businesses to showcase the skills of young people with learning difficulties and disabilities. They are open to people of all ages who are working up to level 1 and are in or have recently been in education. WorldSkills UK are part funding the competitions, and for the past 3 years, Inclusive Skills have featured at the Skills Show at the NEC. NatSpec is leading the initiative, and together with other further education colleagues and WorldSkills UK, the aim is to have a fully branded suite of WorldSkills UK Inclusive Skills competitions this year. This page shows you the Inclusive Skills competitions that were available last year. We have regional heats, with the person placed first in each region going through to the finals. This year we're expecting to see the addition of an entry-level horticulture competition. I'll give you a moment to have a read. All of the 2017 competition briefs and mark schemes are available on the NatSpec website. Use them as they are or adapt them to your setting. Your scheme of learning will naturally follow. So what should you do next if you want to get involved in the Inclusive Skills competitions? If you haven't already done so, watch this film. It gives a good overview of what to expect. Please follow us on Twitter and share and comment on our tweets. Keep an eye on the NatSpec website for updates, including future CPD. Information about our 2018 competitions will be available anytime now, and registration opens on the 1st of March through to the 7th of April. If you want to know more, please get in touch. I look forward to hearing from you. Today we've only touched on the possibilities. Skills competitions stretch and challenge young people. They improve their self-esteem and confidence. They help showcase their work skills and, most importantly, show employers how they can perform under pressure to industry standard competition criteria. With the paid employment rate for people with a learning disability at 5.8%, surely we're going to take this opportunity, collaborating and sharing so that together we can narrow the gap. I'll now take a few moments to share the ideas and questions from the live event. I think I'll start with the ideas. So it was suggested that we use judges and involve them in the creation of a competition task, ensuring it reflects industry. So that's somebody really understanding what it is that we're talking about here. Yes, that was a really helpful comment. But somebody who told us they worked with a garden centre and they were amazed by how many tasks and roles there were in a garden centre that can be fulfilled. It was suggested that we ask employers to offer prizes. Absolutely, I definitely agree with that one. And quite often we found that employers have offered prizes without having to ask. It's been suggested that we get the learners and competitors involved in asking potential judges to judge, so that they're really clear on the student capabilities. we've had a suggestion that we should use more social media. Twitter and Facebook in particular would work well. It's been suggested that it's very important to have a confident person who's able to approach employers and keep the relationship going. Which was a really helpful comment, because it's not just about getting the hook in the first place, it's about keeping that going throughout. So that was a good comment. I've had a suggestion that to get an employer on board should start with the college visit to talk to the students and then move to site visits, with a single project ready to have a continuous link every year. Somebody was telling us here that students undertake surveys of shops and businesses. This was aimed at finding out more about the roles and the tasks involved in business. So that was helpful. We've had a suggestion to organise an employer forum, and I understand that NatSpec do have employer forums, so I'll find out a little bit more about that and look at how we can make sure that we link through that. And we had a suggestion that sending emails is a good way to have a wide reach. So one email could go to several employers, which was really helpful. So those are the suggestions and ideas we had at the live event. I've now got a little pile of questions that we'll work through. Some of them I've missed a few out because some of them were answered in the presentation, but I've got everything that remains unanswered. Okay, this was a really helpful one. It was a question saying, if we're going to use social media and Twitter more, could we have a hashtag that we could all use? Since the live event, I have posed a few questions on Twitter asking for ideas. So if you have any ideas about a hashtag that we could use, please either email me or post it onto our Twitter account. One idea that came up is hashtag your future now. Had a question about Maths Week and what a brilliant week that was to introduce the idea of competition. So focusing on particular initiatives. We've had a note saying that Foxes love the competitions because they link so well to employment. So that was a positive, very positive there. And a question also saying, are NatSpec planning any other competitions? At the moment, we are very much leading on these 8 or 9 this year, but we are keen to support colleges, providers who want to run their own competition, and we can learn from that and share with the network. So if what we have doesn't suit your curriculum, don't let that stop you. You can design something yourself, and if you want any support with that, please get in touch. We had a question about the sort of activity. What sort of activity is the health and science, health and social care? And in response to that, it was very focused on health and safety. There was a task at the beginning which was around hand washing, and the judges were so impressed with the quality, with comments that it's better hand washing than they see on a day-to-day basis. The task itself then went on to be changing a bed and continue with a health and safety focus around personal protective clothing. But if you want more information about any of the competitions, they're on the NatSpec website now. I had a question posed, is your experience, in my experience, is there any difference in the way that we work with big national employers and local employers? And the answer to that is no, really. It depends on individual contacts. What we have found so far, it's either an existing contact or working at a very local level. So a couple of examples where personal contacts at a local level have grown to, with a supermarket, for example, have grown to engaging with the store manager, who then has who's engaged and been so taken by the whole concept that they've then started talking at a regional level. So we see the growth starting at a local level. However, if we've got contacts at a national level, then absolutely go for it. I think it's just a very personal approach. We had a question about sharing a list of national companies that engage in competitions, and we're not quite at that space yet. I think it's a good plan and somewhere that we need to be getting to. We do work with the Department for Work and Pensions with the Disability Confident Initiative, and I've had some conversations and very much hoping in the future that we'll be able to work more closely with the employers who have the kite mark of being disability confident. So watch this space. Question: would the table setting task be done in connection with an employer? That particular task is a task that was part of the competition framework last year, and the answer to that is yes. And a big national employer was involved in just checking off the task, but more so came and judged at a regional level, I know of in one instance, and then certainly at the national final at the skills show. So that's been a really positive relationship there. Okay, and how do we get involved with competitions at a regional, local, national level? The answer to that is that we have a national focus group that I chair, and we have a representative in each of the English regions and devolved administrations. So the way to get involved at a local level is to get in touch with your regional contact. And I think it would be a good idea to have the contact details on the NATSPO website. That is something I will have a look at. In the meantime, get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with your local person. Okay, that's the nice lot of questions there. That's the end of the questions from the live event. If you have any questions, I can't stress enough, please get in touch. And that's all for today. Thank you for your interest in using competition activity in the curriculum and taking the time to join us. I hope you found it informative. And I look forward to hearing from you, and please keep an eye out for future events. Thank you very much. Goodbye.